Hello, my name is Shauna Doyle and I am an IT student at OSU Institute of Technology, and today I will be giving my network protocol presentation. The protocol I chose for my presentation is Telnet. The first slide is vocabulary words. In order to really understand Telnet, I feel like you have to know some vocab and some background behind it to really get a grasp on what this protocol is about and what it does and how people use it. So the first vocabulary word is remote access. Remote access is a service that allows a remote user to access files and other systems remotely on any device or server on a network. Remote access can increase employee productivity and make collaborating with colleagues more efficient. The second vocabulary word is command line or terminal. Command line or terminal is a simple way to manage and configure your device from one location on your computer with a simple command. The third one is network protocols. Network protocols are formal standards and policies composed of rules, procedures, and formats over a network. And the last one is encryption. Encryption is a process of encoding a message or information in such a way that only authorized parties can access it, and those who are not authorized cannot. Moving on to our next slide. What is Telnet? Telnet was originally released in 1969 as one of the earliest network protocols. Telnet was released around the same time that TCP was being developed. The Telnet protocol is an interactive protocol on the application layer of the OSI model. A fun fact for other IT people, most of the time we just use the abbreviations for things and we don't usually know what the words stand for. I know I'm guilty for that. But Telnet actually stands for Teletype Network, or Teletype over Network Protocol. Sorry, lost my mouse. My next slide is about what is Telnet used for. Telnet is sometimes employed for remote management, but can also be used for initial device setup, such as hardware. And this could be routers or switches or your computer that you work on at school, or when you call AT&T or something, they can call and they can remote into your computer and stuff. Another thing Telnet users use Telnet to gain remote access via command line or terminal, depending on your OS, and they use text-oriented communication to configure and monitor other devices, and again, such as routers or switches or other devices on your network. Other common uses. Telnet is used to test and troubleshoot remote web or mail servers, as well as remote accessing multi-user dungeon games and other trusted internal networks. Telnet also allows for the exchange of data across a network, meaning it can receive and send information and send commands. So another thing that Telnet can be used for is also file transfer, meaning that a lot of people will do it where they import files to mass, like when you're in the classroom, they'll just remote into all the computers at once and put files on a computer. Another thing it can be used for is virtual terminal. How do you use Telnet? The first things first, when you're using Telnet, is you might actually have to download the Telnet server. You can do this by, for instance, if you're in Linux, you could do the sudo apt-get telnet, and this would download it and all the packages and stuff that would go with it. So to get started with Telnet, the user connects to the server by using the Telnet protocol, meaning they open the command prompt and they enter the command telnet, and then they would enter the host name, or in some cases you can enter the IP address. Then you would use the telnet commands to configure and manage the server. You can go online and research different telnet commands and what they're used for and stuff like that. If I were to do that, I would probably be here for a very long time. And then to end the session, you would enter the command telnet. You can also use multiple terminals at once and perform multiple operations at once, and the operations would be identified by their IP addresses. How Telnet works. Telnet connects remotely to other terminals via the TCP/IP networks. This is beneficial since TCP is used so widespread across many devices, and it's very popular. This is beneficial for companies like corporations because it makes it easier and more time efficient to solve problems. So most of the time there will be a port that's listening for somebody trying to make a telnet connection. Sometimes this is, more often than not, it's on port 23, but there are also other ports that can be listening ports that will watch out for remote access and stuff. So after it listens, it interacts in something called a three-way handshake. A three-way handshake is something has three parts. So the first part is it establishes and exchanges information, then it syncs sequence numbers, and then the last part is it exchanges parameters. And so after going through that process, the connection should be established and maintained until, like we covered in the previous slide, somebody will issue the telnet command and exit telnet. So the next slide is about the cons of using telnet. Since telnet is a strictly text-based configuration thing, it has its limitations and stuff, since all you can use is the terminal. Telnet is also not very appealing to the eyes, since all you see is the terminal, so it doesn't really give you a physical representation for what you're thinking of, so you have to be more, it probably isn't good for like new programmers or new IT technicians who aren't really familiar with command line and stuff like that. So they require more of a physical representation most of the time. And also, since you're remoting into a device and you might be sending packages back and forth, or you're constantly sending information back and forth between you and that device, it can be slow at times. And as I will state in the slides to come, telnet also is not the most secure protocol out there. So let's get into that. Telnet isn't the most secure remote protocol out there. Telnet has been widely replaced by SSH. Why could this be? One, it could be just outdated. There's new protocols out there all the time. For instance, one of the most popular ones is SSH. Also, Telnet doesn't encrypt their passwords or their information, and so this could be another reason why. And I'll get into more of that in a minute. But if you are using Telnet on your computer, it's usually sometimes it's the default that's used on a computer, so you would have to go in and change settings. So if it's what you're using right now, more often than that, then that's okay. Not all hope is lost, because you can configure Telnet to be more secure. So Telnet versus SSH, which as I stated before, SSH is the one that widely replaced Telnet. Both are used to remotely connect and communicate to different devices such as switches and routers, and both give you the capability to monitor a network. But the difference between Telnet and SSH is that Telnet does not encrypt the information it passes through a network. So, for instance, if you were to log into a computer on your network, you would be sending the credentials, such as the username and password, across that network. So, as I stated before, there are other listening ports. There's multiple listening ports on your device. So, if, say, an unauthorized user was to be listening on one of those ports, then they could easily access your username and password. This is different when it comes to SSH though, because SSH encrypts all passwords and information that passes through, so only the people who are authorized to see that information see it, which is a lot more secure, and I think that's one of the main reasons that SSH has started to replace Telnet. So what have we learned? So today we learned what Telnet is. It's a remote access protocol. It allows us to manage and configure things via our remote device. We learned how to use Telnet. We learned that sometimes we have to download it, and we learned that there are different commands and stuff that we have to use for it, and then we learned how it works. We learned about how the three-way handshake and about how to enter and leave. Although, yes, Telnet might be outdated, but it has set example for protocols like SSH to make today's network protocols more efficient. It revolutionized remote access. Although it has been widely replaced by SSH, it's still used today. As I stated before, a lot of times it'll be the default, and you'll have to go into your computer and you'll have to activate SSH and disable Telnet. Although it might be out. Oh, yeah, sorry. I just stated that. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my video, and I hope it was a little educational for you guys. Thank you.